Welcome to the Naturally Prosperous Woman podcast. I'm your host, Tara Preston, founder of the Akashic Women's School, mentor to new paradigm leaders for over a decade, and teacher of divine prosperity consciousness. This podcast is dedicated to empowering women leaders around the world who desire to tap into their authentic feminine power for more money, magnetism, and, of course, impact. It's a platform for women leaders wanting to embrace their natural abilities to create, lead, and flow, unlocking their inherent potential for prosperity and living in alignment with their truest selves. Because it's your birthright to flourish in the naturalness of the woman you were born to be. Thanks so much for being here. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Naturally Prosperous Woman. I am, of course, your host, Tara Preston. And today I'm here to talk about the liberator within the dark feminine. I was tuning in before this podcast, reflecting on what wanted to come through, what felt like a good share for the collective, for the highest good of all. And I just kept hearing this message around raising standards and examining where your tolerance edge is. And then I was like, oh, of course, this is coming through as we, specifically in the Northern Hemisphere, start to descend into the dark half of the year. The dark half of the year through Samhain, right into the winter solstice, it is that dropping in. It is that part of the spiral of the wheel of the year where we start to descend. The dark feminine is something that, actually most of my work actually really is coming from the frequency or the lens of the dark feminine. Although a lot of women are attracted to my work because of the lightness and the beauty. But the thing is, we can't really have that radiance, that beauty, that lightness without navigating and descending more fully into the shadows, right? Into the shadows. And the other way that this dark feminine aspect weaves into our full expression as women is the primal aspect. So it's like the dark feminine is very connected to the sacral, to the pelvic bowl, to the womb, right? To the void. It's very connected to where and how our essence begins to drop into yoni, to the vulva, right? The root. Like, think about how dark the root is, right? Like how dark and forested and mysterious and unknown, and how creatively powerful and transformational yoni is, right? And so this is an area that a lot of, highly intelligent, sensitive, powerful women can and will avoid, because it asks us to descend into that part of ourselves that we have through the collective mostly been shamed for embracing, right? Like our liberated sexual power, right? This is also where we touch in on like the crone throne, right? Like the crone is that archetypal energy that's very, very comfortable with her power and very comfortable in the unknown. And so, she's very comfortable with her expression and where that pushes up against sometimes a more narrow view of what women should look and be like even as they age. So that's the invitation of the dark feminine. Another aspect of this often as we start to drop into the void, into the cauldron of the womb, is really reclaiming the bitch energy and also feeling our anger and our grief, right? That the womb can often hold due to where there's been suppression in our experience, where we've been shamed, what we're feeling collectively, right? Like how the great mother speaks to us through us as a part of this collective sisterhood with what we may be witnessing on the planet through injustices. So the dark feminine, I believe she's a liberator, and she speaks to us about our personal holy truth. like where we have been sacrificing, suppressing, tolerating, and where we have been dropping our standards, right? And so the feminine really speaks to us. The dark feminine really starts to speak to us through our anger, through our grief, right? Through that feeling of where we've been shamed. She is more of the uncomfortable emotions. But through the exploration, through the feeling of, through the dropping in of, through the listening to these darker, denser, heavy emotions, we find a deeper truth. We find an inner sense of justice. And I say justice because when we start to identify the deeper truth of what we want and what's not working in our lives, then we can identify it, we can claim it, and we can start to bring our life back into a space of balance, fairness, justice, right? In a way where our soul just feels good, in a way where our feminine expression feels elevated in our experience. And this is work that is near and dear to my heart. If any of this is speaking to you, I'm going to share with you also that Way of Sacred She, a dark feminine medicine journey. And I was not planning to speak about the dark feminine at all on this podcast, but it is one of my richest bodies of work. It is one of those bodies of work that I created 4 years ago. And every time I bring it forward every fall, I usually run it as a group experience. This year, I'm not. This year, I've got kind of like a beautiful taste test pathway of some of my most important work. And still to this day, every time I bring it through in the fall, I always have women share with me how much that work impacted them. So right now it is on for $100. It's a seriously ridiculous low investment, but I wanted to do something generous. I wanted to do something that would give women a foot into my work in the world and also a give back. So there's 8 Akashic shamanic transmissions, journeys that come with really beautiful shadow work playlists and journals. And you could journey through this through the entire dark half of the year, through the entire year. You could do it in 8 weeks, and it will guaranteed move you through so much. It'll activate a lot in a really powerful, beautiful way. It's going to clear the path. It's going to drop you in. It's going to create the space, right, that needs to happen for your elevation in the world, for the expression of your essence, to really bring that space of balance back into your experience, right? Because you need to untangle this, feel it, burn away everything that doesn't serve you, and then be able to drop into these deeper, more powerful, potent aspects of you. There's so many places that I could go with this. And when this body of work, Way of Sacred She, a dark feminine medicine journey, really started to solidify, and this was after years of doing this work, right? One of the power pieces around this really was this reclaiming of the bitch energy, right? Like and this is the invitation for you too, right? This is a good place to drop in with this, right? Is that oftentimes we've been conditioned in our experience, or maybe through past lives with even with the witch wound, it's like we've been conditioned to bring forward the parts of ourselves that we feel society deems most acceptable, or maybe we're most acceptable in our family unit, our family of origin, or maybe in our relationship, or maybe in the sisterhood that we had as young women. So we bring those parts of ourselves forward, which are often more of the people-pleasing parts of ourselves, or, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with those parts of ourselves that we bring forward, but they can often mask a deeper, more powerful, potent expression of who we are. Right. And so in the shadows lies this bitch energy, this too much aspect of who we are, right? This is where we get labeled being the too much woman, right? Too loud, too beautiful, too in her power, too bossy, too talks too much, right? It's too in your feminine leadership, right? It's also like where we get to be raw and real and have a voice and be angry sometimes. Like, it's an invitation into all of it. But it is a little bit of that, like, who does she think she is? Right? Who does she think she is? And this word bitch has been used to make women submissive, right? Like, how dare you be too much? How dare you speak your mind? How dare you have a voice around something? Right? And then we get labeled bitch, or how dare we be too pushy, or how dare we want too much? How dare we take up too much space with the expression of our beauty, truth, and power? Shame on you, right? And yeah, this is the liberation of the true full expression of who we are. It's where we find the most potency and the most freedom in our expression, right? And it is, and as I'm saying that, I'm feeling like my womb and yoni like really light up, right? Like that's that the reclamation of like reclaiming the fullness of our female power. So as you're listening, right, this is the invitation. The invitation is to explore, like, where have you been put into a box? Where have you been told that you're too much? Maybe a bitch, right? Too much in your power, too much in your leadership, too much in your truth. This is where we unleash our impact in the world. Right? So if you've been listening to me for a while, this is work I've been doing for 13 years. There's an entire inner foundation. There's an entire root system there. I've traveled so many pathways into the exploration of the feminine, right? And there's a lot when we're exploring the feminine. There's a lot that has to do with the higher chakra system. And then, there's that other part again, where it's like we're exploring more of the deeper, lower quadrants of our body and how that connects to our full expression and how that connects to our inner liberation, right? And it's all kind of in a quantum way tied together. And so as you're listening, it's really that invitation to start to, listen to what your body is communicating, right? Listen to what your womb is saying. Listen to where the grief or the anger starts to bubble up. Like, yeah, I've been told that I need to shut up. I've been told that I'm too much. I've been told to back off, play smaller, right? And what that touches in on and what that bubbles up for you, right? And just paying attention, feeling it. The opportunity, and by the way, on Way of Sacred She, there is a phenomenal module, transmission, guided journey, and it's called Sacred Anger. Sacred Anger, where we journey through, in a very shamanic way, layers of grief, layers of anger. There's a deepening journal. So I wish I had my drum here, right? There's an opportunity to follow the thread of what is really present for you so that we can unearth the deeper truth, the deeper want. So starting to pay attention to where you feel limited, stifled, stuck, trapped in a box, right? Where that brings up frustration, anger, sadness, right? Those are grief, right? Those are kind of like the parallels that we're looking for, because your expression, the fullness of your truth, your liberation is needed on the planet. Like it is the great balancer, right? It's like she is the liberator. She is going to show you what is out of balance in your life, like what you've been tolerating for way too long, where you've been sacrificing, right? And where you've been overriding a deeper truth. And the deeper truth becomes the liberator. She becomes the guide. She's the sacred, holy guide, right? The sacred, holy guide, right? To really identify the missing ingredient, right? That is there to turn you on, right? Flip the switch to really start to ignite the flame of truth through your experience to create more space for you, right? And this is to create more space for you. This is, this plays out within the home. I mean, you could be a mother, right? And it's just like, there's underneath the surface, there's the anger, the frustration, the sadness, right? Because the systems and the structures in the home, they aren't supportive of how you want to move and flow through your day, right? This doesn't feel spacious to like how you want to show up in your home, in the role of mother, as partner, right? Maybe even in how that contributes to like your expression, which it does, but even through the realm of your business. So powerful, right? This could be, this plays out, this happens a lot. I've been with my partner for 25 years, but so, I've done this journey and continue to do this journey. And my husband is someone who, from the Akashic Records perspective is a divine power, and he really truly is. And so he's been a really beautiful kind of fierce mirror for me to be able to, he challenges me, right? He challenges me. And where I felt the most frustration and anger is where there's been an invitation to identify where I feel limited in my expression, right? And it's not that it's necessarily on our partners. It's how the framework of patriarchal consciousness plays out through our relationships, right? And that internal framework plays out within ourselves and in our partnerships. And it's often, more of that wounded masculine aspect that's very, very threatened by the dark feminine, by the fierce, right? Liberator, the fierce feminine liberator that just knows there is something limiting her full free expression, something that feels unjust even, right? It doesn't feel like it's balanced. It doesn't feel like it's a contribution to the evolution of you, right? Of your feminine expression, the collective of, the family unit, our communities to the collective, right? And so the dark feminine is this like fierce energy that says, this is enough. This is enough. This isn't working. I need more. I want more. I'm tired. Right? And so it can play out in the landscape of our relationships. And sometimes that comes up and through how we get to communicate our wants and needs as women. Specifically, this can come up too around how we connect to pleasure, right? Our experience of sex, the spaciousness that we need, want, desire for sex. There's so many ways and layers that this can come through and bubble up in terms of what we've been tolerating, sacrificing, and where we've been lowering our standards to maybe appease, or maybe because of the conditioning, or maybe just because of fear. And those are all valid. And so we do this work for ourselves first. We try to do this work for ourselves first, because sometimes what can happen is if this piece has been avoided for a long time, and sometimes, we're carrying this through our ancestry, it bubbles up and over as pure anger, right? And it's like we've got to have compassion with ourselves that maybe, we're not showing up in a space of non-diluted communication, right? Where we've processed our own stuff. And so the clear communication of what it is that's really sitting under the surface for us can come through. So sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it comes through as like dragon energy, right? And sometimes it just comes through as a messy conversation or upset or anger. It's not always perfect and pretty, and the dark feminine isn't perfect and pretty, right? Sometimes it comes through like that because we've just had enough. And so I just want to extend some grace and some compassion if this is how it's bubbling up in your experience, right? Because there is a reason for it, right? There's a reason for it. And sometimes it's what's needed to burn away what doesn't serve the relationship or something to do with the family systems and how it's set up to support you, like you've just had enough, right? And it can serve in a way where it's like, hey, I've got your attention now, this needs to stop, right? But we do our best, and this is a lot of the work that Way of Sacred Sheets takes you through, but also a lot of the work that I space hold for is that, like, how do we do the work? Right? How do we start to drop in? How do we start to process? How do we start to come into that space of identifying the language and the voice of the dark feminine? And there's many layers to this. I couldn't possibly go into all of it now, although we go into a fair bit of it in Way of Sacred She, and just through the different aspects of my work. But we do our best to claim sacred space, right? And that's what Way of Sacred She is. Every transmission is an opportunity to claim sacred space. Sacred space is, where it's space that's just for us. It's an hour or a half an hour where the candle's lit, where we can lean back, where we can drop in, where we can just start to, examine what we're feeling. For me, when I'm processing these layers, I use a lot of movement. I use a lot of movement, a lot of breath work. I stomp it out. I might scream it out. For real. We have 14 acres of land. I can go into the backfield and give a good scream or two, but I don't inhibit myself from my raw expression. And there can be edges around that. And so with whatever I'm saying, it's find your edge. Right? Maybe exploring, lighting a candle and having your sacred objects and your essential oils or your flower essences or whatever it is, you're coming into that space. And then maybe for you, exploring your edge is, one of the ways I used to do this when I was actually just exploring my edge with what that looked like was through art practices. Like grabbing, a crayon or usually a crayon, because you can take it and you can push it into the paper, but you'd grab a big sheet of white paper and you just scribble out your anger. You can use different colors and you just keep scribbling out your anger until you feel the soft, like it starts to soften. And you can even just start to like flow with it from there. Stomping your feet, right? Like clenching your fists and then releasing, clenching your fists and then releasing, right? Opening up your jaw, right? Deep breathing. I use a lot of like primal sounds when I drop into the womb. That can be really, really helpful. Of course, talking to people that feel safe to you, right? Finding spaces that you can lean into with different, guides and space holders. And if this speaks to you, please reach out. I have a couple of private spots open right now. I'm actually opening up more spots than I have in the last few years as I'm switching up my business model and coming back to a bit more private work, which feels really, really yummy to me. So if you're interested in taking this journey deeper, you can go to wayofsacredshe.com. Super simple. $100. I'm serious. This is a gift. It is a gift. It is a give back. And sometimes there's always that hesitation of dropping prices too low. Will people still understand and see the value in this work? Because it is life-changing. This pathway is life-changing. I've also given you the option to purchase each audio individually. To purchase each transmission individually for $15. So as of October 31st, that will end. That will completely end. It'll go back to $9.97. It's ridiculous kind of that I'm doing this, but it is a give back. It really is. It really, I'm in a great place in my life, my business. I'm feeling really good about how things are coming together. This was really seriously a give back. So I hope that you will, if this is speaking to you, take a look at that program or reach out. Feminine Phoenix Rising is my 9 moon soul initiation for women who want to lead from the ease of their divine feminine, right? It is the call into the next evolution of your feminine leadership in the world, your sacred work in the world. And you can be someone who's in the online space. You could be somebody who's in corporate. You could be a mom, right? Like your sacred work and your feminine leadership, it'll look different for every woman. And the beauty is I have traveled with women from all backgrounds, all walks of life over the last 13 years from all over the world, right? So feminine leadership is something that's so unique to you. But this is Feminine Phoenix Rising. This is, we burn it all away. We go deep. We drop you in deep into your power. This is an invitation to take up space, right? With more of your sacred work, your voice, your truth, your prosperity, your relationship to money and power in the world. And there's a lot of untangling to do. It's not just something you push through. It's a totally different muscle. And there's a lot of rearranging that needs to happen through different relationship dynamics, family dynamics, a lot of family of origin work, right? There's shifting pieces in terms of sometimes our business, right? What we're leaving behind, what needs to shift and rearrange, where we're opening up space. And then that coming into and the reclamation of the deeper beauty, truth, and power of who you are and where we get to bring that forward in the world, right? And that's the feminine leadership is right there. So it's a very, very potent, powerful journey. Feminine Phoenix Rising is something I've been doing. This is, I think, I'm 5 years, is my signature pathway of transformation. So powerful. If this is speaking to you, reach out. Reach out. So, my loves, if this has stirred anything, I want to invite you to be with that. If anger is something that's really present for you right now, one flower essence that's coming to mind is milk thistle flower essence. Is so beautiful for moving anger in a very gentle way through the liver. That's definitely an invitation there. And to create sacred space, right? To look for ways to feel into those edges and to start to identify, right? To come into the relationship with the womb, to come into relationship with pussy, right? Like I remember that feeling of having my essence to start to really powerfully descend through the vortex of my body. And that feeling of like, this is like the most powerful source of energy that I have. It exists right between my legs, right? Like the power to create, right? The ultimate transformer. There's just so much wisdom through the female vessel. But starting to identify, where there's an opportunity, where you've just been tolerating maybe, where there's been sacrifice, where you're ready to not tolerate. Right? Where the anger, the grief, the frustration, the sadness, like what is it communicating to you? What are you wanting more of? In any aspect of your life, grabbing your journal. Maybe you want to hit pause on this podcast, grabbing your journal. Like, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? What am I yearning for? What am I craving? What do I need? What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? That's my invitation. So feel it, release it, look for the messages, right? Start to identify the deeper truth, right? Where does the dark feminine want to bring liberation, justice, balance, right? Where does she want to create space for more of your full expression as a powerful woman into this human experience? Right? Where is the dismantling of the wounded masculine consciousness within, throughout our relationships, throughout the family unit? Where is that ready to dismantle and release to create more space, right, for the power, the beauty, and the liberated essence of the divine feminine to flow forward? All right. Have a dark, mysterious, playful and wonderful Samhain, right? The witch's new year, the very beginning of the wheel of the year, right? Yeah. And like that connection to our ancestors, like this is such a cauldron of transformation available right now. Sending you so much love. Until next time, bye for now. Hello, friend. Thanks for joining us this week. If you'd like to stay in touch, head on over to the Akashic Women's Community on Facebook group. Come share your takeaways, your insights, your reflections. I would absolutely love to hear. If you'd like to deepen into any part of this work, head on over to the akashicwomenschool.com/free-gift and grab the Akashic Radiant Womb Awakening and Clearing Morning Practice to start to sink into your feminine power. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.